So if you're older or you're a little bit more mature, or if you prepared the ground in advance, you can take much better advantage of them. You can use them to their fullest extent in the most beneficial way. And this will increase and transform what you have done to an even greater degree, because that's the nature of Pluto. Pluto is the god of birth, death, and transformation. So things get born, the old has to die, and the new has to be transformed.
Hello and welcome to Get Yourself Optimized. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer. It is my pleasure to have Beth Kuper with us. She was a guest previously, episode 375, so she's back. And instead of just talking about the Enneagram, this time we're going to be going into astrology and the Enneagram and how they relate and work together and the differences as well. Beth is an Enneagram teacher and board member of the International Enneagram Association Colorado chapter. And she provides individual and group sessions to help clients discover their Enneagram type, learning about their unconscious habits of attention, and discovering their paths of growth to more conscious awareness and transformation. Through using the Enneagram, coaches can more effectively mentor their students and cultivate team building among their staff. Beth, it's so great to have you on the show.
Wonderful. I'm very happy to be here.
So, Beth, thanks for coming back on the show. I'd love to get your take on like astrology and what that is, and what's a horoscope versus astrology. Assuming our listener or viewer isn't really familiar with it, just give them the 101 version.
Okay. Astrology is a very ancient art and science, both. And the ancients used the movement of the planets in the sky like a giant computer, since they didn't have computers. And they actually believed that the planets were gods. And so the orbit of the planet was its destiny. And they matched up what happened on Earth with where the planets were in the sky. But the astrology that I learned, and I think this is pretty common amongst astrologers today, the planets don't really beam down rays on you and make you do things. All right. It is not predictive in that way. They simply reflect an archetypal pattern that is everywhere present in the universe. So the archetypal pattern of the movement of the planets is very aligned with the archetypal patterns in your life. So there's that very, very ancient expression, as above, so below, as within, so without, as in you, so in me. We have, of course, computers today, so we can do up charts really fast. And the fact that so many people all over the world are sharing their knowledge means that our understanding of astrology is growing much greater than it was previously. And it's something that can be shared with everyone. And it can be used in a very useful way, not so much a predictive way, but it's more like a weather report. So if it's raining, you can decide, do I want to go on a picnic, or maybe I want to stay home by the fire? Or if it's snowing, perhaps we could go skiing, rather than taking a walk. So you have choices. You always have choices. And the ancients, it was much more predictive in the past because people did not have choices in their lives. You were born a certain place. You may have been a serf and you did what your father did, and that's what your life was. It was all laid out for you. But now we have tremendous choice and variety in what we choose. So there's a great deal of choice in astrology.
And what is a horoscope then in relation to astrology?
Your horoscope, you may have seen they have these dreadful horoscopes in newspapers, which are just such nonsense. Okay, they're very, I wouldn't spend time reading them. That's where they describe what is going on in the sky and how it relates to perhaps maybe one planet in your chart, and just maybe the sun sign. So that's the horoscope, and it is dependent, of course, upon your astrological chart. If you really want an in-depth reading, you need to have an astrologer take a look at everything that's going on, not just the sun.
And how did you start delving into this? Like, there must have been something that happened where, like, I needed this, or I had, there was some sort of synchronicity or something that made you want to dig into this at some point, I imagine.
Absolutely. I was involved with a school of metaphysics called the Prosperos in Santa Monica, California. And it was for adults, and everybody took all the classes that were given. So I'm just absolutely fascinated with these metaphysical classes and learning symbology. And one of the classes was astrology. There were a lot of astrology classes. And so, of course, I took them. And at that time, I thought, oh, it's maybe too late for me. I mean, I'm 23 years old. Is it too late for me to learn astrology? So, but I've stuck with it all of my life.
So how has it shown up for you in ways that have been surprising or transformational? I know you've made a lot of impact for your clients in doing these readings and tapping into their natal charts and all that. But what about you specifically? What's it done for you?
Well, it's helped me see what is going on in a symbolic way in my life. And I didn't necessarily, I could look it all up in the books. What does this mean? What does that mean? It doesn't mean that I really understand it. Sometimes I have to look back and see what was going on to go, oh, so that's why that is. Oh, I have Saturn on the ascendant. Okay, now I can see why I have a rather serious outlook on life. And, I was very serious as a child. I've loosened up quite a bit because I've focused on some other things and expanded my understanding of what that means. But it's very helpful for me to see, in terms of a weather report, what's coming up? What do I need to prepare for? Are some really good things happening? Let me get ready for it so that I can take advantage of that. Or are there some very challenging things happening? Let me remind myself I may be looking at the downside of things during that particular transit, and that's not necessarily telling me the truth about who I am. It is going to help, as my mother would say, adversity builds character. And so, okay, that's going to be a character building time, but I know with astrology, it's limited. It's not going to be that way forever, because with transits, the transits are simply where all the planets are in the sky in relationship to where they were when you were born. And so the transits are always changing.
So I know you said that we don't necessarily use this these days as a predictive indicator of where our lives are going to end up, but it seems like there's a lot of potential to use it as a way to divine what's going on and what's going to happen. And so if somebody is wanting to look into their future, couldn't they use astrology to do so?
Yes, absolutely. You certainly can. You will see phases, and you will see, just like what I said before, it's like a weather report. Okay, we know a storm is coming. Now we can do some preparation. Or we know we're going to have some wonderful sunny days. Oh, let's make some plans for how we're going to really use that time while we've got it. So it's more like that than a specific thing is going to happen, and this is how it's going to be. So it's more generalized, but it's specific enough because it's going to show you the areas. And when I talk about the transits in your chart, I'll be asking you, how is this showing up in your life? Because I can give you a general definition, but I don't know specifically how it's showing up, what is really bothering you, what is not that difficult, what is really great going on.
Yeah, and I think it's important for our listener to understand, too, that this isn't just some kind of hocus pocus, new agey thing. It has spiritual roots. It's actually something that astrology is taught in Kabbalah, for example, which is Jewish mysticism, and it's not anti-religious or it's not heretical. It's got a spiritual root to it, right?
Absolutely. And, just for example, the Bible is loaded with astrology and numerology. You've got the 12 tribes of Israel and the 12 disciples and Jesus fasting for 40 days. And the rain came down for 40 days and 40 nights when Noah was in his ark. These are all archetypal symbols. And archetypes are patterns that happen all over the world, no matter what your culture is, no matter what your language is. Certain archetypes will play out. And that's what unites us as human beings. And we can get a greater understanding of those so that we can use our time here on earth, which is limited, and our energy and put it in the most productive way.
Yeah. And my understanding of why this works, why it's so good at predicting things about situations we're going to be experiencing, challenges we're going to face, et cetera, is because it's like you're dropped into this life at a particular point in time, it's kind of like an IP address where you're given the coordinates of this is your place of birth, this is your date of birth, your time of birth. This is where you get placed into the time-space continuum, and it's not random. You're placed specifically there, and you can use that IP address or those coordinates to access information that's in the upper worlds, in the ethereal realm, to give you some life tips. And some of that information could be accessed through numerology. Some of it could be accessed through astrology. Some of it could be accessed through Akashic Records reading, etc. And all that is available to you to utilize as a tool. That's kind of my understanding of it from a spiritual perspective.
Yeah. There's a great verse in the Bible that God is saying, I have given you the sun and moon and the stars in the heavens as signs for you to understand. And the ancients, astrology is so old, we don't even know how old it is. But the ancients all over the world used astrology, and only later was it demonized by the church and various other places that wanted to have control. So it was a control issue. But we find now that it's not really angels and demons. They used to say, oh, this is a good transit, this is a bad one. We don't do that anymore. We say, hey, this is a beneficial one, and this particular transit's a challenging one. But challenges are good. You need challenges in your life so that you actually get up and do something and learn and grow, because we don't tend to grow when we get too comfortable.
So if we could go into some of the, and by the way, you're an expert at this area of astrology and also on Enneagram. How many years have you been studying and working with astrology?
I've been working with astrology over 50 years. I started off young, and I've been working with the Enneagram for 30 years. This is my 30th year.
Yeah. And you relate the Enneagram to astrology in what way?
Both the Enneagram and astrology are personality profiling systems. They help us understand who we are and what we're here to do. The Enneagram, I should explain this. The Enneagram is simply a system of 9 personality types with the goal of moving beyond your type into wholeness. So you're not stuck in your type, but you learn the habit of perception of your type, the habitual way you look at the world and all the things you don't notice about the world. And the Enneagram will help you understand that, widen your perspective, recognize the gifts of your type, and then you move beyond your type so that you can access the gifts of the other types. Because the Enneagram is a movement of energy. And so you really do have access to all the types, but you have to start with your type. So once you know what your type is, then you've got a composite. It's like a super duper bouillon cube, and you just unpack it. You just add water and unpack it, unpack. And you do that to find out, what your paths of growth are, and where your limitations are, self-imposed, and how you can move out of them and have a more expansive point of view. Now, astrology, on the other hand, gives you 1,000 details. Oh my gosh, you've got aspects and planets and houses and all kinds of things in astrology. It's huge. And so the difficulty with astrology is putting it all together into a composite whole that makes sense. Because many different things in astrology seem to be contradictory, when someone reads your chart or looks at your transits. So here's the deal. You can't really trust a system until you know its boundaries. You have to know what that system can do and what it cannot do, and then you can trust it. So the boundaries of the Enneagram are, it tells you nothing about timing. And I'll run into this when I'm doing Enneagram sessions with people. They may be going through something really intense, and I go, wow, I'd like to take a look at your astrological chart and kind of see what is going on here. So the astrology is masterful. It's one of the best profiling systems that's ever been created for telling time. It's all about timing. Because like I said, you have natal chart, which never changes. That's your birthright. That's your blueprint. And it stays that way. That's when you first took your breath, stays that way all your life. But then the planets keep right on moving. You got born, but they keep moving. And so the relationship of the planets in the sky to your natal chart is what we look at with the transits.
Interesting. Okay. So let's have a look at what you found. I gave you my information so that you could look up my natal chart and do all your analysis. I'd love to hear how like, first of all, generally, what's the explanation for why someone would want to do a natal chart with anyone, you or any astrologer, and then let's get into some of the specifics about me.
Okay. All right. So your natal chart, that's very important to see what your talents and abilities and direction is in your life. It is potential. So like, for example, when I do a chart for a baby, I'm going like, well, this is all that's going on. This is what I think is going to be very strong in this child's life. This is not so much, and so forth. But with an adult, you need to know how that chart has influenced you. What was your blueprint? What was your divine inheritance, really? What are your talents? What are the things that you were just naturally going to be good at if you put in some energy? And what are the areas that are going to be difficult for you, that might trip you up? What are the challenges are that you need to work on in your life? And so I'll just show you an example right here. All right. This is what a transit chart looks like. The inside right here, this is your natal chart. Okay, that does not change. But out here, we have the transits going on here. The planets are moving round and round and round here. And they're making relationships with the various planets in your natal chart. So I've put a circle around, there's 4 major transits that you have going on right now. I put a circle around those. So those will be the ones that I'll be talking about. Okay, so let's start off on a high point here. All right, right now you have transiting Jupiter is making a trine to your natal sun.
And we should specify here that today's date is March 22nd. So the stuff that you're sharing about astrology and where things are in, alignments and planets and stars and all that, that's now on March 22nd, 2023.
Great, you bet. Okay, so this particular transit I'm talking about, this started on March 16th, and it's going to continue on for another week or so, then gradually it will decline. But Jupiter is the planet of hope and optimism and good luck, and the sun is your essential personality. So you can feel good, you can feel optimistic, things are going your way, people like you, you might do some travel, finances are good, you just generally feel good, you feel happy, prosperous, and abundant. So how has that been from, say, mid-March to now for you?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's been a good run. Yeah, that relate. I can say that's true.
Uh-huh. Now you have a very naturally optimistic personality, so you're very open to that sort of thing. Just from the years that I've known you. Okay. So the next transit this is the one that is most powerful in your chart at this time, and it's going to last for a long time. We have transiting Pluto making a trine to your natal Pluto. And I'll explain about trine. A trine simply means they're 120 degrees apart. And it is a very beneficial aspect. It means things go well, they go smoothly. If there's difficulties, you surmount them pretty easily. And in this situation, transiting Pluto is the planet of power and transformation and control. It is the most powerful planet of all the planets, and it is the slowest moving. So whenever you have a Pluto transit, it lasts a long, long time. So everything I'm going to say is going to be very strong this entire year, all the way through 2023 and into 2024. Okay, it is nothing less than spiritual progress on the path to freedom.
I like that.
Yeah. It is very concerned, this transit is very concerned with your purpose and direction. And you put a lot of drive and willpower into creating what you want to create in life and where you want to go. And Pluto gives you that power, and you access the power within yourself, because all the planets and signs, they're really within you. Self-improvement is very important, and moving along your path towards evolutionary development, because Pluto has a lot to do with transformation. And so you can much more easily let go of obsolete behavior and move towards more enlightened ways of doing things. So how has that shown up in your life?
Oh, many, many ways. So I have been on this quest to elevate my consciousness, to climb that Jacob's ladder, to get closer and closer to God. And it's the thing I'm most passionate about. I've been studying quite a lot. I take online courses, I read, I watch videos, I meditate, talk to God, I just connect with the upper worlds all the time.
And so this is something, you've been doing this for a long time in your life, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it's been like a huge part of my life since early 2021.
Okay, so it's even been more so. Okay. All right.
Because the awakening event on January 22nd of that year, in the middle of the night, when I prayed to God for a job, and he showed me the matrix, and then I could see the whole illusory world, and I was given a job. And so I want to make a difference in this world and help people to connect to the Creator, to cleave to God.
When I hear something so specific, January 22nd, 2021, it makes me go, ooh, I would love to see what transits were going on at that time for you. Because it happened all of a sudden. It wasn't a gradual thing. I mean, you've been maybe moving in that direction, but it was a very powerful incident.
Very much so. And it was in Israel. And that was not a coincidence. That was, I think, a key part of this. And I was preparing for that. I didn't realize it, but I had been getting these entrainments every week for months there in Israel with a practitioner who studied under Donnie Epstein, who was a guest on the show, an energy healer, creator of a modality called network spinal analysis. And I didn't know it at the time, but that was getting me deeper and deeper into connection, so that I was poised and ready for that massive download that happened that night.
Poised and ready. Boy, is that important. Yeah. Did you have any health issues going on, or did it disrupt your system in any way?
No, I didn't have any health issues, and disruptive in a positive way, in that it changed my whole outlook on everything. I was already spiritual, but it was like, most of the stuff I work on doesn't really matter.
Isn't that something? Yeah, yeah. Change of trajectory. Mm-hmm. Well, this Pluto transit, the Pluto Trine, which is very, very beneficial, and it takes a long, long time. This is something that is going to give you an increased and increased perspective in terms of, you've planted seeds for more than 2 years. You were preparing yourself up until January 22nd, 2021. Then you had this profound experience. You have been working on that ever since. This is wonderful preparation for something as powerful as this happening. Because, transits can happen at different times in someone's life. And so if you're older or you're a little bit more mature or you prepared the ground in advance, you can take much better advantage of them. You can use them to their fullest extent in the most beneficial way. And this will increase and transform what you have done to an even greater degree, because that's the nature of Pluto. Pluto is the god of birth, death, and transformation. So things get born, the old has to die, and the new has to be transformed. So after this podcast is over, I'm definitely going to take a look at the chart for that particular date. Where in Israel were you?
Tel Aviv. Oh, Ramat Gan specifically. That's a suburb of Tel Aviv.
Okay, that's close enough. Okay. Was there any particular time that this happened?
It was in the middle of the night.
Okay.
Yeah, it was about, I guess it might have been the morning of the 23rd then, because it would have been probably 1 a.m. or something like that.
Okay. And I know this is approximate, but that's very close for having something this profound happen to you in this way.
Yeah, by the way, I got angel number 5858 earlier today, and I looked it up, and it says angel number 5858 indicates you're 100% protected, supported, and supported for making a fresh start of a pending project.
Wonderful. Okay, I'll be very interested to find out what that project is and how it goes. All right. Okay, now I want to explain a little bit about passes. All right. So here's what happens. This happens with all the outer planets. If this represents a planet, your natal planet, and let's say here's Pluto. Pluto comes along. This is the first pass where it's conjunct, where it is now.
Yeah, for somebody who's only listening and not seeing a video, they're going to have a hard time visualizing what you're talking about.
Okay, all right. But it's going to pass over, okay? Then it's going to go back over it again, retrograde. That's the second pass. Then it's going to go forward as the third pass. So you are just in the first pass of Pluto making a trine, beneficial trine to where it was when you were born. This is going to be exact, to the exact degree, and it stays in the exact degree quite a while. From mid-February of this year through the end of March. Powerful time. Then Pluto moves on. It makes a second pass where it goes back over the same place mid-June through the end of July of this year. So that's going to be a real powerful time for you. And then the third pass is mid-December through mid-January of 2024. So basically, it isn't just when Pluto is the exact degree that you're feeling it. You're going to feel it all the way up, and you're going to feel it, as it recedes. So you're going to feel it all year long and pretty much into 2024, the things that we've talked about.
But during those little windows where it's passing, those little like 1 month or 6 week long windows or whatever they are going to happen a couple times, what's the significance of that specifically?
The first pass is, whoa, sometimes it can hit you like a ton of bricks, sometimes not, whatever. The second pass is, with difficult transits, with challenging transits, sometimes it feels like you got run over by a truck and then it backed up over you and then it ran over you again. Okay, you got your 3 passes. So sometimes it will reinstate the same lesson the second time around. And the third time around can sometimes be challenging because, okay, did you really get it? The universe says, did you really get it? Because this is it, and I'm moving on, and I'm not going to be doing this particular aspect anymore. So it doesn't have to be earth-shattering. It can be very powerful. But sometimes with Pluto's funny. Sometimes you don't really know what happened until after it's over, and you can look back and you go, oh, now that was then. This is now. Okay, now I get what some of these changes were in my life.
Right. And for some people, it can feel like getting hit by a truck, but for other people, it just feels like I'm being helped along here on this transformation journey.
Exactly, because you definitely have invisible means of support. And that's good you're in touch with your angels. They are definitely helpful. I think just about every religion there is had angels or something similar. Okay, so here's another transit. This is happening to the exact exact degree as well. This is a square, and it's a square between your natal Saturn, your transiting Saturn is square your natal Neptune. And what this means is the square means challenge. For some people, it can be really terrible. For other people, they can go, okay, I'm going to just, I'm going to buck up here and I'm going to meet this challenge. The Saturn represents structure, order, discipline. It rules your bones. It is the god of timing. So we have Chronos, the god of timing, and we have chronometers, things we tell time with here on Earth, and that's our structure. And natal Neptune, it's making a challenging relationship with Neptune. And Neptune is a planet of spirituality. Neptune dissolves boundaries so you can be one with all there is. Saturn creates boundaries so that you can have a structured life in a physical body here on Earth. So Saturn and Neptune are not friendly. So Neptune is busy dissolving boundaries. It has a lot to do with your spiritual life and your idealism, your faith. But on the low side, Neptune has to do with nebulousness, like you don't know where things are at, it's a fog. And the lowest side of Neptune is spirituality through drugs. I'll make my transformation, I'll take a shortcut through drugs, and illusion and delusion. So when Saturn, which wants structure, is making a challenging relationship with Neptune that wants to dissolve structure, your idealism and your faith are tested. Because the idealism is Neptune, the testing is Saturn. Saturn will always test you. Saturn is where your fears and insecurities lie. And, as long as we're in a physical body, we have fears and insecurities, like what's going to happen to me? So you can feel insecure, you can doubt yourself, like things are going well, but I don't know, I don't feel good. You can lose your perspective. Your normal spiritual expansive perspective can seem to shrink down. And trying to figure out what is really going on can be very nebulous. So it can make you feel depressed and discouraged. Now, you have to put all this in relationship with what's going on with this Pluto trine, because the Pluto trine is very, very powerful. So you might not feel this all that much right now. This is only its first pass. But this is going to repeat. It's going to be exact from now till another week and a half. Okay, that's not very long. And then it's just going to move on. But then it's going to back up and it's going to do the second pass over your natal Neptune. Squaring your natal Neptune. And then it will do a third pass after that. So the second pass is going to happen in late September through mid-October of this year. And the third pass is going to be late November through mid-December of this year. So basically, you're going to be feeling this all year long, but there's certain times in the year you're going to feel it more. And you just have to remember, this too shall pass. Oh, Lord.
I'm being tested.
Yeah, you're being tested. How has that shown up? Or has it shown up for you? Have you noticed?
Yeah, I'm being tested right now. Yeah, I'm being tested right now. So I'll share some specific that. So I do something called Health Nucleus, which I had David Caro on the podcast to talk about it. But I go and get a full body MRI scan, the whole genetic sequencing, and the different battery of blood tests and everything. It's very comprehensive, not covered by insurance, and it's expensive, but it's really good. And somebody who wants to live a long time would go and do this on a regular, like once a year basis. So I went and did it, and one of the things they had me do as a thing to augment this was go and get checked for skin cancers, because they can't check that with MRI. So they referred me to a dermatologist in my local area. I went and saw him, and I just got the results this morning that one of they did a couple biopsies, and one of them is precancerous. And that's not easy for me to take. it's not like I know I'm guided and I'm cared for and protected and loved and everything. Yep. I know that. And it's still, as you said, I'm in a physical body. We're all in physical bodies. So we have issues that show up as we age. I'm 52, so I have to go in and get the mole removed, and then it's, minor surgery, but it certainly does give me pause, and I know that this was why I was guided to go to Health Nucleus, because I wouldn't have thought to go to a dermatologist and get all the moles checked and everything if I hadn't done the whole comprehensive exam, and this is an adjunct to that. So that's the challenge. That's where I'm being tested on my faith and everything. And I know that I'm being guided and protected and loved. And then I caught this early. It's not even cancerous. And I was guided to go to Health Nucleus. I was guided to go pretty much right away. So I did make that happen. And, so disaster is averted. But it's still not easy to have to go in and for a minor surgery. It's a challenge for me.
Of course, because the mind, the imagination immediately goes, oh my God, precancerous. It could be cancer. It could be, this is where the imagination can run amok. And Neptune is all about imagination. And so that was very wonderful that you had this habit, really, a habit of going in once a year, having everything checked, even though you don't have any necessarily symptoms, negative symptoms going on. One of the things about Neptune is it's nebulous. And so sometimes they can see weird things happen with people's health, and they can't quite put their finger on it. They can't quite figure it out. And then when the transit is over, it's done. It's not a problem anymore. So that nebulousness, the fact that you have been doing your Saturn work by going in and getting the regular checkups and doing way more than what insurance pays for. That is very, very beneficial. But, it's kind of a wake-up call. I mean, wow, at age 52, you're immortal. You are a mortal being. And we have
the body is mortal.
I'm sorry.
This is an important distinction.
Yes, of course. The body is
such
mortal.
An important distinction.
All right.
I used to believe that I am my body.
Yeah.
I think most of us did or still do. So I am not my body, but I occupy a body. I'm renting this body from God. And, I have a duty of care to maintain this vessel, to go to the gym and lift weights and keep my muscle mass and body and bone mass and all that sort of stuff. I have a duty of care. And part of the duty of care is to get regular checkups and to make necessary kind of diet changes as I'm being advised to, and so forth.
Mm-hmm. And our bodies allow us to connect with the earth, to be able to walk around, to do things that we can only do when we're in a body. So absolutely, we must take care of them. And we realize since Saturn rules time, we have a limited amount of time. And I know you want to make absolutely the best use of it. So I really want to commend you for what you're doing in the way you're really paying attention to it.
Thank you. Yeah. And, that's another thing too, is I've realized that time is an illusion, and the asset that I'm spending isn't time. It's my attention.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is.
My attention and intention. I can make time slow down or I can make it speed up based on my attention and intention. And how I show up with 100% presence or just kind of half here and half in my phone or whatever, that also is me spending that asset of attention in a good way or a bad way.
I love that expression, intention and attention. Yeah. Yeah, because we may not think we have choices in maybe the amount of money we have or whatever, but boy, do we have choice on where we put our attention. And, back to the Enneagram. The Enneagram, simply your Enneagram type, shows you your habit of attention. And again, there's Saturn. So when you recognize your habit of attention, you realize I can change that habit. And the next transit I'd like to talk about is actually, it's a very positive transit, but it could be very disruptive. In fact, it will be disruptive. So this is another one that's going on. Now, the Saturn squaring the natal Neptune, challenging it, you're going to feel this all year long. You're not really going to be out of this woods until well into 2024. So just kind of get used to it. Just get used to it. This is how it is. You have the resources to deal with it. Now, here's what's going to really, really help you break through some old patterns that have been resistant to change. And that is transiting Uranus is conjunct your natal Saturn. So where Saturn was when you were born, transiting Uranus is conjunct it, and it's within a half a degree today of being exact. So it's very, very strong. And it has, you're going to be feeling what I'm going to talk about. You're going to feel this pretty much through the month of April. And this is its third pass. It's done this twice before. Okay. What happens is Uranus is the planet of change and revolution. You've got to break up the old in order to bring in the new. So Uranus just wants to get rid of everything the way it was and open you up to greater creativity. But it can be very disruptive because Saturn wants to hang on to everything the way it was. Saturn loves the old, it loves habit, it loves tradition. And so Saturn and Uranus are not friends. They have very, very different energy dynamics. So now the fact is that transiting Uranus, the one that's moving, is hitting your natal Saturn. You are being forced to let go of old habits, old behaviors, old opinions, old ideas. The very foundations of your life, which is what is Saturn, that's your foundations, are going to go through and are going through radical change. It can be very shocking, and it can really disrupt your security. And you may think you're not hanging on to something very tight until Uranus knocks on your door, or actually breaks down your door. And you realize, whoa, man, that's not working anymore. It was working, now it's not. It's being taken away from me. So at this point, you need patience and flexibility. Fortunately, you're getting a lot of that with your Pluto trine Pluto. Pluto is not known for patience and flexibility, but when you've got that nice trine, you'll be able to flow with it more easily. So Uranus gives you freedom from restrictions in the past, freedom from restrictions of old habits. Maybe there's some old habit you've been wanting to break. You want to design a new future. Now's the time to do it. It also will give you faith in the future. The future will be way more important than the past, because future is Uranus, past is Saturn. Sometimes, though, you will find that your inner security will come, your sense of security, if it's being broken up in your external world, you have to find the sense of security within yourself. That's where your security really lies, so that it's not linked to your external structure. So you'll find out what's important to you and what isn't important to you. And this is a time, knowing this, like the weather report. What do you want to change in your life? How's this showing up for you?
Yeah, a message I get a lot is to jettison the trivial distractions.
I like that, especially when you're on a lifeboat. You got to get rid of the stuff you do not need. And that incident that happened today, I mean, that's sudden. I mean, you didn't expect this. You didn't know it was going to be happening. And that could also be part of this Uranus sudden change, uncoupling you and unlinking you from dependency on the security of your body, and I have good health and I'm just fine. And suddenly you're disrupted, and whoa, I'm not. Now, this is, like I said, this is the third pass. So the first pass, the first time this happened, this Uranus conjunct your natal Saturn, this happened mid-June of last year through early July. And then it happened again mid-October through early November of last year. So it's always interesting to be able to look back and say, okay, what was going on then? Was there anything that was very disruptive during those times? Because once Uranus moves on, it's not going to be making this anymore. Somewhere around April, you're not going to be feeling this all that much anymore.
Got it. So what was the November time frame? Or
Okay, it's mid-June through early July, and then mid-October through early November.
Trying to think what was happening in mid-October to early November. Nothing really strikes me.
Sometimes it's helpful, after we're done talking and all, it might be helpful just glance at your calendar. Because when you see your calendar, I know you have to live by your calendar in a lot of ways with all your appointments and everything. And see, that will jog your memory. Because a lot of times we don't remember things if we're not paying attention to them. They're happening, we forget about them, we move on. Now, it was happening, it was in the fourth house. I'll go a little bit further. Transiting Uranus is in your fourth house. There's 12, here, I'll show you this again. There's 12 segments in a chart, and you can see them, okay? We call them houses, so first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and so on, all right? The fourth segment, which is right down here, there, is what we call the house of home. It's your home, it's your family environment, it's what you were brought up in, it's the beliefs you drank in with your mother's milk, it's the past, it's the kind of thing, all the kind of things that make you feel secure. And Uranus has been passing through this house for the last, about 7 years. So it may have been disruptive. And it was in this house when you had your revelation back in 2021. Can be very disruptive to how you think things are and what makes you feel stable, calm, and secure.
Yep. Okay.
So do some reflection on that and see what you come up with.
Yeah, I will. If a listener or viewer is looking at a chart and they see these different squares and triangles and all that, like, what's the legend for that? What is that? What do those different geometric shapes mean?
Okay, so a conjunction is when two planets are in the same place. So they're the same degree. Doesn't matter what that degree is. It can be anything from 0 to 29, because that's how many degrees we have in each house. And of course, 360 degrees in a circle. So it just means when two things are conjunct, they're in the same place. All right?
Okay. And is there a symbol for that?
Yes. The conjunction looks like, I will draw it for you. Here we go. Right here. That's the conjunction.
Okay, so a circle with a line going up and to the right.
Yeah, it's conjunction. Okay, so now the next one I'll talk about is the trine. All right, the trine is just energy is very, very free flowing, and it is 2 planets are 120 degrees apart. That could be in your natal chart, or it could be a transiting planet making 120 degree with a natal. And if you look, I'll draw you a trine. It's just going to be a triangle. It looks like this. There's a triangle. And if you look at a circle, you can make a nice equilateral triangle. There. So there's your circle with your equilateral triangle. So if you had a planet at each one of these points, you'd have what we call a grand trine. Either one of these are going to be 120 degrees from each other.
Okay. So the triangle, for the listener, the triangle is inside of the circle.
Yeah, if you look at the whole circle, yeah. That's a triangle. And then the square looks like just what you would think it would look like. Looks like a square. There's your square there. Okay, that's when 2 planets are 90 degrees. And the way we figure this is if you had one planet, I'll find you one. Let's see here. Okay, Saturn is square Neptune. So we've got Saturn down here. Put my finger on it. This is Saturn. This is your transiting Saturn. And this is your natal Neptune. Transiting Saturn here, natal Neptune here. If you draw a line to the center of the circle and up like this, so you're going to connect those two, you're going to get a nice right angle. That's what we call a square. That's a challenge. And then we have another one there are many, many, many aspects, but these are the ones we use the most. And this is the sextile. I didn't go into sextiles today because we only have so much time, but this star right here is the sextile. And that's sort of half as good as a trine. That's like half a trine. Okay, that means you have some opportunity, but you have to do a little work to make it happen. It's not going to be just free.
Got it. Okay, kind of. And a house? What is a house?
A house. Okay. So here, once again, you'll see here, this is your natal chart. It never changes. All right. See, if you look all around here, you're going to see that this circle here is divided into 12 houses. These are the houses. Okay, it's just like a pie divided into 12 pieces. Each house has a meaning. So when a planet is in that house, it takes on that meaning. So for example, I'll give you an example. Let's just take the first house. The first house is your physical body. It's how you put yourself out in the world. It's what people see when you walk in the room. You're seeing that. That's your purpose. And you happen to have a planet there. You've got your Mercury there. So that means you are going to be great with communication. You've got a natural talent for it. You communicate with people. They understand you. You know how to express. It also gives you talent in writing and in anything to do with communication. And here we are communicating, you know. So you do lots and lots of podcasts. You do all kinds of teaching and so forth. So I would expect that to be prominent in your life. And it's pretty, let's see here. Yeah. And it's within about 6 degrees of your ascendant. So right here, this line right here, if this was a clock, it'd be the 9 o'clock position, but that's your ascendant. That's the, what constellation was on the horizon when you were born. So you were born with Sagittarius, 29 degrees Sagittarius ascendant. Okay, that's like a stained glass window. Everything is going to go through that window, through that Sagittarian expression of, you know, wanting freedom and wanting to gallop off in many different directions and wanting adventure in life and being willing to explore everything. Very open-minded, and nicely enough, it's ruled by Jupiter. So there's a lot of abundance and good fortune right there on your ascendant. And that's everything filters through that. That has that lot to do with your basic attitude in life.
Cool. And how often would you recommend somebody get a reading like this? Is this a monthly sort of thing, or a quarterly, or once in a blue moon, or what?
It would be nice if it was once a year, because I've talked about just these four. These are your 4 major transits we talked about today, and most of them, not all of them, but most of them are going to be very strong all throughout this year. So a year from now, it would be excellent to have another reading, and I keep my notes from this reading and say, okay, so what did happen when you went through this? Because you have some more passes of Saturn square Neptune, all right, and Pluto trine Pluto. That's going to be going on all year long. What really did happen? You'll have more of a perspective, and then we look forward toward more of the future.
Mm-hmm. And how would I apply this information with my Enneagram? Like, how do those two go together for me specifically?
Okay, that is an area that I am seriously investigating. All right, because we didn't have time today to talk about as many things as I'd like to talk about, but I would like to talk about some of these things in relationship to your Enneagram type. And of course, we discussed that last time. Okay, you're type 9. Okay, so how you would experience these transits would be a bit different than somebody who was a different type, how they would experience it. And the one is going to illuminate the other. So the astrology will illuminate how you express your Enneagram type. And your Enneagram type is going to inform how you experience these various astrological transits. And this is something I'm playing with this, because I focus on doing Enneagram insight sessions with people where we focus on the Enneagram. But on the side, I want to take a look at that person's chart. You know, so it's good to work the two together. And I just want to gather more information on really how do they work together. Knowing your Enneagram type, I have a composite of your personality. Astrology has got lots and lots and lots of details. I'd love to work more on how you put those together.
Yeah, that's fascinating stuff. Awesome. And when somebody hears their new age friend say in passing, like, oh, Mercury's in retrograde, you better watch out. Like, what does that mean on a practical level for everybody and anybody who's completely unfamiliar with astrology and how all that works, and they don't have any interest in reading a horoscope or getting a reading or anything? They just, again, coming from a place of just willing suspension of disbelief, what would that mean for them? Mercury's in retrograde now, and so you better watch out.
Okay, all right. I live in the Boulder, Colorado area. I'm about 10 miles east of Boulder, and everybody here knows about Mercury retrograde. They may not know anything about astrology, but they certainly know that. And the more you watch out for it, the more you're going to see it happening. Okay, so what happens is Mercury is going around the sun. It doesn't really go backwards. It just keeps going around the sun. I mean, planets don't suddenly go backwards. But it's our point of view from, if you look at the Earth, where the Earth is and where Mercury is, it appears to go retrograde. So the planets, almost all the planets, not the sun, but almost all the rest of them, have some retrograde motion. So you don't have to know anything about astrology, but if you know a little bit about symbology, Mercury is the planet of communication. It also rules the hands, because every planet rules some body part. And so it rules the hands, manufacturing, it rules machinery, and so forth. So what happens is when it goes retrograde, communication seems to break down. People get irritable. They can't keep their appointments. Their computer breaks down. Please back up your system before Mercury retrograde. And all kinds of disruptions start happening in the area of communications and machinery. And if you know this is happening, you can make some preparations ahead of time. That means, like I said, you back up your system, all right? But you also have more patience with people. Don't be so judgmental when they don't show up and they promise they would. Give them some grace. Go with the flow. Go ahead. You can plan a party if you want, but don't expect it's going to go the way you planned it. But be able to just, ride with the tide. And so if you can be more fluid and flexible, you don't have to suffer so much. But if you hang on tight and things should be this certain way and they aren't, then you can have, a real difficult, disruptive time.
So you might see glitches and internet connections while you're trying to do podcast interviews and things like that.
Yeah, little things like that. Like Mercury is not retrograde yet, but it's going to be. I'd have to take a look and see. I have a whole little thing here of when it's going retrograde. Okay. It's not going to go retrograde to the 21st of April, but you feel it a couple of weeks prior to that. So if you just start noticing, am I noticing some things? Some of these things are happening. Then you can more easily work as harmoniously as possible with what's going on. And people love Mercury retrograde. I'll tell you why. Because it gives us something to blame. Everybody has something to blame. Yes, it's Mercury retrograde. That's why things are falling apart. But don't worry, they'll get put back together again, and they may get put back together again in a better formation.
Yeah, I know people who won't sign big contracts, make big purchases during Mercury in retrograde. And also, as you said, there's a couple of weeks before that's called the shadow.
Right.
And then a couple of weeks after. And then you're completely clear from Mercury retrograde.
And you're clear, right. And I agree with you on the contracts. I mean, sometimes you can't avoid it, but get a couple good friends to look at the contract, and you may even want to have an attorney look at the contract beforehand, because you won't always be seeing things accurately the way that they are. So these are just little precautions. And the shadow is just where you're moving up to it. You're getting closer and closer and closer to it. And then then there's repair work after the retrograde is over.
Yeah. My understanding of Mercury in retrograde, as far as it being a positive window in time for you, is that it's a great time to reflect, to revitalize, renew, recharge, reassess, all the kind of words.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up, because people tend to think of it as something bad. I mean, that's just the general attitude about it. But it is a time when we have special abilities in all those areas. We can recreate how we see ourselves and how we show up in the world. And so it can be it can be a useful time if we have the wit to use it for what it can be used for.
If everything's a blessing, which it is, in my understanding, everything's a blessing, even if you don't recognize it at the time as such. But if you're willing to consider that or take that on board as a universal truth, that'll make a lot more palatable to go through these different challenges.
Yeah. I like that. Everything is a blessing. Sometimes a blessing in disguise. Sometimes we have to go through it and look back at it to see that it's a blessing. But you know that as Buckminster Fuller said, the universe is a conspiracy in our favor, and God doesn't make mistakes. It's all in divine right timing, and we have to just trust.
Yep. Speaking of divine right timing, it's time to wrap up our episode.
Wow, well, this has been so much fun, Stephan. You know a lot about astrology. You've been studying on the side.
I don't know, not really. I don't really know that much. I know more about numerology than astrology, and but I'm fascinated by all this stuff. And so if our listener or viewer wants to work with you, I know you offer these Enneagram insight sessions. You offer astrology readings, and you go over their natal chart and all that, like we did today. How do they get in touch? And I know you offer. You're going to offer my listeners a complimentary consultation to discuss how using the Enneagram can enhance their personal growth and business and coaching practice.
Right. I'm happy to talk with anybody in a complimentary phone call, or even better, a Zoom call, and talk more about, where they are and what they're looking for and so forth. I do Enneagram insight sessions, and I do my favorite thing to do with astrology is the transit reading. So you can see where things are, what things are going to be changing, how that's going to be affecting your life. And I'm happy anyone who has seen this podcast, just mention that you saw this podcast. I'll give you a 20% discount on either one of my two services. And my very favorite thing to do is to do them both. Do the Enneagram, then do the astrology, and connect the two together.
Yeah. And we did an Enneagram insight session, and I just got so much value out of it. You are really gifted and so knowledgeable and wise on this, on both of these topics, Enneagram and the astrological readings. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome, Stephan, and thank you so much for those very kind words about two of my favorite things in life. And I sure appreciate being here.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. And listener, please take advantage of this opportunity to work with Beth and book a session with her. Again, the website address to find you is where?
My plain old email, it's bethkuper@gmail.com, but you have to spell Cooper correctly. It's Kuper. So that's BETHKUPER@gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from you.
Awesome. Thank you, Beth. Thank you, listener. We'll catch you in the next episode. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, signing off.